Today is Tisha Be'Av, and our sages explained to us that on Tisha Be'Av there are many tragic events that occurred historically. Most notably, the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash, both the first Beit HaMikdash and the second Beit HaMikdash. The first Beit HaMikdash was destroyed in the year 586 BCE, before the Common Era, by the Babylonians, by Nebuchadnezzar and Bavel, and Am Yisrael was exiled from Yerushalayim to Bavel, and that was what Yirmiyahu speaks about in the book of Eicha, the destruction of the first Beit HaMikdash in the year 586 BCE. The second Beit HaMikdash was destroyed in the year 68 of the Common Era, 68 CE, so it's 1,955 years ago, here in the year 2023, and that one, the second Beit HaMikdash, was destroyed by the Romans. And that's the exile that we are in still today, that ever since then we have returned to Eretz Yisrael, but we haven't rebuilt the Beit HaMikdash. So this day of Tisha Be'Av, remarkably, hundreds of years apart, two Beit HaMikdash were destroyed on the same exact date. And our sages explain that it's a day that is set for Puranut. It's a day that's set for when there's tragic events that will follow us, it happens in this time. And in fact, Chachamim explained to us, the Gemara Masechet Ta'anit explains to us, that there was an event that occurred on Tisha B'Av way before then. And that was when we were in the desert, meaning from the times of the Torah. So this has to do with the sin of the Meraglim. But it doesn't stop there. Allow me to explain. The Torah tells us that before Am Yisrael entered the land of Israel, we had left Egypt. Moshe Rabbeinu took us out of Egypt with all of the miracles, and everyone was there and experienced it. And Hashem told us that you will inherit the land of Canaan. I will give you the land of Canaan. You'll go in and you'll inherit it. You'll have no issues. But as we see in Parashat Shalach, the nation sends 12 spies to enter the land before the nation enters. And the way Chachamim explained to us is that the people said, hey, we want to check it out before we go in. We want to see what we're getting ourselves into. Which could be legitimate to the extent that they want to come up with a strategy of what's the best approach? Where do we approach from? What's the best angle? What should be our military tactics? It shouldn't be a question of do we enter or not. It shouldn't be a question of whether or not they want the land of Israel, but it should be a question of how is the best way to approach it. So Moshe Rabbeinu sends 12 men, representing each one representing another tribe. So you have a nice representation, another tribe of Am Yisrael, and they enter the land. Out of these 12 men, 10 of them come back with a bad report. The truth is, they come with a good report of the land, and they say, Gam zavat chalav v'dvashi, it's a good land, the land is great, it has great fruit, it's a land flowing with milk and honey. But there's a problem. The problem is the people that inhabit the land are going to be very difficult to beat. And because of that, it's going to be very difficult to conquer the land. It's a land that Eretz Ochelet Yoshvei, it's a land that swallows its inhabitants. They say some negative things about the land, but they say everyone we see there are big, they're huge. There's giants there. And they say this line of we viewed ourselves as grasshoppers, they viewed us as grasshoppers. We can't enter the land, and we won't be successful. And so the 10 men come back and they say an evil report about the land of Israel, about Eretz Yisrael. They give a bad report. Now, if it would have stopped there, then what would have happened is those 10 men that came back with this bad report, against the will of God, which was very clear that Hashem said, I will give you this land and you will inherit it. And they're coming and saying, no, even God can't do this. So those 10 men, if it would have stopped there, those 10 men themselves would have got punished and it would have ended. And we would have continued going in. In fact, two of those spies, 2 out of the 12 spies, were Yoshua ben Nun and Caleb ben Yefuneh. Both of them, they said, we can do it. We will do it. We will be successful. We'll be able to do it. We're able to get this land. What are you talking about? It's good. It's something that Hashem told us. It's in our hands. We'll be able to do it. So when the spies gave their report, the people had a choice. Do they want to accept this report or not? It was up to the people to decide whether they wanted to listen and accept it or not. And so what the Torah tells us is, after they give the report, Vatisa kol ha'eda vayitenu et kolam. The entire people cried. They raised their voices in tears, in crying. Vayivku ha'am balayla hahu. On that night, the nation cried. So this is where the Gemara in Masechet Tani tells us, on that night, the people cried. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Oto halayla leil Tisha Be'Av haya. That night was the night of Tisha Be'Av. Amar lahem HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Atem bechitem b'chiyah shel simcha, shel chinam, mechila. Amar lahem HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem tells the people, Atem bechitem b'chiyah shel chinam. You cried for no reason. I told you you're going to be able to enter the land, so you have 10 people come. It's 10 people. At the end of the day, it's 10 people out of a nation that 2-3 million people. So you have 2-3 million people that get influenced by 10 people. You cried for no reason. Atem bechitem bechiyah shel chinam. You cried for no reason. V'ani kovea lachem bechiyah ledorot. Therefore, God says, I will designate this date as a time for crying forever, for future generations. Meaning, when there's a time that a tragedy will befall us as a nation, in particular to the land of Israel or to the Beit HaMikdash, it will happen on Tisha Be'Av. And in fact, that's what happens. The first Beit HaMikdash was destroyed. We were exiled from the land of Israel. The second Beit HaMikdash was destroyed. We were exiled from the land of Israel. And so all of that is to say that it was a precedent that we had set by crying, by saying we don't want the land of Israel. So anytime that there's going to be some sort of suffering with Eretz Yisrael, it happens on Tisha Be'Av. So there's a few things that I want to point out here. Number one, as I said, there's really two parties here. There were the 10 miraglim that the Torah tells us that afterwards they were punished for their sin of bringing about the bad, evil report about the land of Israel. But there was a second actor here, and that was the nation. The nation listened to the miraglim, and they accepted the story, and they chose to cry, and they chose to believe it, despite Yoshua and Caleb, who was 2 out of the 12 spies, saying that you can accept you could enter and we could get the land. They chose not to listen to Yoshua and Caleb, but to listen to the other 10. So that was a choice. That was their fault. And because of that, we were punished. If the nation would have said, we won't listen to you, nothing would have happened. These 10 men would have got what they deserved and it would have been over. But we chose to listen. So why is this important? The answer is because on Tisha B'Av, one of the things we think about is a sin known as Lashon Hara. Lashon Hara is translated as evil speech, evil talk, negative speech about someone or something. Now, why is that something we speak about so much? Is because there's a Gemara that tells us that the Beit HaMikdash, the second Beit HaMikdash, was destroyed because of Sinat Chinam. Sinat Chinam is baseless hatred. It's the same word as Bechiyah Shel Chinam, of baseless crying for no reason. There's also hatred for no reason. And our sages explain that when we have infighting and we don't have unity, as a people, as a nation, we don't have unity, then it's like our immune system is shut down. The unity that we have together is our immune system. It keeps us healthy and keeps us safe no matter what we're doing. But once our unity falls, the nation falls. The entire system falls. So Ramim explained that the second Beit HaMikdash was destroyed because of Sinat Chinam, because of baseless hatred. And they connect this to being jealous of one another, hating one another, speaking negatively about one another. And that very much ties into the sin of Lashon Hara. So I want to speak just a few words about the sin of Lashon Hara. Just explain and define some terms. Lashon Hara is the sin of speaking negatively about someone. And this negatively about someone could be the truth. But speaking negatively about someone that hurts them in certain ways, it could hurt them financially, it could hurt them socially, it could hurt them emotionally. Saying something negative about someone, even if it's true, that hurts them financially, emotionally, socially, or in one way or another, that is this sin of lo telech rachil b'amecha, or not to speak Lashon Hara. And that's something that's very grave. It's something that's very grave. But you have the one who's speaking it, and also the one who's receiving it, the listener. There's also a sin that we're explaining now, that it's wrong and it's improper, it's incorrect to accept a bad report. If someone wants to speak gossip, talk about someone, say something negative about someone, and you're listening, you're going to say, well, I'm not talking. Yeah, but you're listening. You're taking part. If there was no one to talk to, And the person giving the report would have nothing to say. It would fall apart. That's exactly what happened with the spies. The Meragim came and they said a negative report about Israel. If no one would have listened to them, nothing would have happened. They would have got what they deserved and it would have ended. But the nation chose to listen. The nation chose to listen. That's what really was the problem, because they chose to listen. So when there is gossip being spoken, or negative talk being spoken, there's a person who's talking is doing a terrible thing, the person who's listening and accepting it is doing a terrible thing. That's Lashon Hara. There's another category called Hotza'at Shem Ra, or Motzi Shem Ra. That is fabrication. That's the same concept of Lashon Hara, of speaking negatively about someone that hurts them in some way, financially, socially, or emotionally. But the only difference between Lashon Hara and Hotza'at Shem Ra, or Motzi Shem Ra, is that Motzi Shem Ra is false. It's not even the truth. That's why I called it fabrication. You're fabricating something. So if I say something negative about someone and it's true, that's Lashon Hara. If it's not true, it's Motzi Shem Ra. They're both bad. They're both wrong. Now, this one has falsehood to it, so it's even worse to a certain extent. But that don't justify Lashon Hara by saying, well, it's the truth. Of course, there are times where someone needs to speak the truth for a certain situation, but it should be done in a careful way, and it should be done with sensitivity. For example, if someone is doing business and they want to know, if they want to ask for a reference, so they ask someone who knows this person and saying, hey, can I trust this person? Look, if you had a bad experience with them, you could say, look, I don't know what other people's experiences are. I could tell you I had one experience with him or her. I had a bad experience. I asked them for something. They didn't pay me. They're giving me a lot of issues. Maybe the person is different. Just proceed with caution. That I'm allowed to say in the sense that I'm helping someone to look out for themselves. But then I could start making fun of the way the person looks and the way the person acts and the way the person smells and says, oh, you don't know, this person does this. Oh, you have no idea what they do in their own home. That's completely unnecessary and off topic. Someone has a question, that there's a concern, so you could speak to the concern when it's done with sensitivity, when it's done without going overboard, without saying too many negative things, but sticking to the topic. But just speaking about the way the person looks, that's not something we do. That's not something we should do. That is called Lashon Hara. So we have Lashon Hara, which is speaking negatively about someone. Hotza'at Shem Ra, or Motzi Shem Ra, which is fabricating a lie about a person. And there's another category called Rechilut. Rechilut is what we call slander. Now, what is Rechilut? The category is defined as when one person goes tell someone else what a third party said about them. So let's just, for argument's sake, I come to you and I say, do you know what Mr. So-and-so said about you? You wouldn't believe what Mrs. So-and-so said about you. So now, I'm saying something negative in that I'm quoting someone else, right? So I'm saying, oh, this person said this. That by itself would be Lashon Hara, but an extra angle is that I'm telling you that they said that person said something negative about you. And so it's slander in the sense that not only am I speaking negative about someone, but I'm also creating strife. I'm creating a fight. I'm now making you hate this person and starting a whole big thing because I decide to say this. Again, I'm not talking about when there's someone in danger, right? This person comes and he has a plot to hurt someone. Of course I have to go tell the person. We're not talking about that. We're talking about someone who's making fun of someone behind the scenes, and I came and I tell the person, and I say, this person's making fun of you behind the scenes. Is there something to gain from that? Is there something to gain? No, you're just creating gossip. If there's something to gain, it's one thing. But if you're saying, you don't know what they're saying about you, you should go and say something back about them. You're creating strife. You're speaking Lashon Hara. And this infighting, it's like promoting a fight. Instead of diffusing tensions, you're increasing the tensions. So that is another category called Rechilut, of Lo Telech Rachil Ba'amecha. While we're speaking about this topic, it's also important to know there's a certain type of avon from the Torah called Ona'at Devarim. Ona'at Devarim is when you speak negatively to a person, to that person, not about what someone else did or said, but just something that's hurtful talk. Say like, who do you think you are? You're nothing. That is called Ona'at Devarim. It's abusing someone through your speech. It's verbal abuse, and it's also an avon from the Torah. Ona'at Devarim is also something it's something that we don't do, and it falls in this category of watching the way you speak. You shouldn't speak negatively about someone else, about what someone else did, whether it's true or not, whether it's about what they said or not. Those are the categories of Lashon Hara, Hotza'at Shem Ra, and Rechilut. And also, if you're speaking directly to a person, don't say, "Hey, you look ugly." You speak like that to a person. You should never do that. Or another thing that Chachamim tell us is like, let's say someone wants to say something. Let's say, for example, someone used to do something in the past. They used to do some action that they're not proud of, and they've improved their ways, and they're past that. That's something they did in the past. They've improved their ways, and they cleaned up their act. They pulled themselves together. And now you come to that person and you say, "Oh, I remember you. Yeah, you think you're so special. I remember you. You used to be doing this nonsense many years ago." So you're reminding a person of their past for what? What is that for? It's just to hurt the person. It's just to get the guy in the side. That's called Ona'at Devarim. It's hurtful speech. It's something that also shouldn't be done. You need to be careful about when you speak about how it could have an effect on how other people think. And again, we're talking about it certainly when there's no positive, no good intent either. Now, someone can always justify and say, "Well, no, I have a positive intent," but let's be real. If you're doing this to hurt someone, then it's not something you should be saying. You shouldn't be speaking in a way to be disrespectful, to hurt someone. We spoke about the fact that all of this speech, it's a problem from the one who is speaking, and it's also a problem for the one who is receiving it, for the person who's listening to it. It's an issue. So if someone is in this situation, the Talmud says something very interesting. I believe the Gemara, I think it's the Gemara Ketubot. The Gemara says very early in Masechet Ketubot that when someone is speaking to you in a negative way, take your fingers, put them right in your ears. And it says, you know why we have the shape of our fingers are so narrow? Is because they could fit right in the ear canal. Now, maybe you could try to do it a little bit more smooth way instead of like someone talking and saying, no. Maybe there's a more smooth way you could do it. You could try to change the subject in a light way. Maybe you could get up and excuse yourself from the table or whatever it is. But there should be this sensitivity of when there's negative talk going on, it's just not something you want to engage yourself into. You don't want to be involved. It draws the person down. These are all of the things we spoke about that are not allowed, but we haven't spoken about the effect that could have on you. When you're speaking negatively about someone, it has an effect on you. You're always looking at the negatives of others. You're always criticizing others. You're always trying to find fault in others. It brings you down and makes you a negative person. You're always viewing people in a negative light. It makes things negative. What if you view people in a positive light? It'll have a positive effect on you. That's a healthy thing. So, in addition to it being wrong from the Torah, but it also is not good for you. And then the other aspect is from a social aspect. You want to talk bad about people behind their back. So, you have a group and you're all talking bad behind someone's back. Hey, tomorrow when you're not in this group and everyone else is, what do you think they're doing? You don't think they're talking about you either? When you surround yourself with people that are always gossiping, then you could better believe they're going to be gossiping about you. But if you surround yourself with people and you're a type of person, then I won't be gossiping. I won't say negative things about others. I won't be speaking Lashon Hara. And those are the people you surround yourself with, people that are positive, people that will not be speaking negative. So they won't be speaking negative about you either. Again, so these are just some of the benefits of I'm not speaking Lashon Hara. One additional component we'll say is, what about speaking positively about someone? So I'll tell you the Talmud says, look, you got to be careful with that also. You want to compliment someone, you're overly complimenting someone, be careful. The Talmud gives a story, I believe the details are something like, I forgot the exact details, but the details are something like where someone wrote a document, a handwritten document, and it's presented to a rabbi, and then someone comes next to the rabbi and says, wow, what beautiful penmanship, what beautiful handwriting, look at those letters, it's so nice, such nice calligraphy, right, so beautiful. And the rabbi says, listen, stop telling me Lashon Hara. And he says, what do you mean Lashon Hara? I'm saying it's beautiful handwriting, there's nothing negative about that. He says, you don't realize that when you say something positive about someone, you might be opening up a can of worms. Because you're saying, oh, this is such beautiful handwriting. Let's say I happen to know who that author is. I know who the scribe is. I know who the person who wrote it is. And let's say that person is a terrible person. So you come and you say, wow, it's such beautiful handwriting. My response could be, yeah, that's the only thing beautiful about this person. And otherwise, this person is a piece of trash and everything about the person is terrible. It's like, whoa, like you may not realize that by making a positive comment, you might start people to talk about negative things. Now you might say, well, that's not my fault. It may not be your fault, but you're promoting a conversation of speaking about others. And that's not what you should be speaking about. Instead of spending your time speaking about others, you should speak about concepts, you should speak about messages, about lessons of the Torah, of how to act, what's the proper way, not to focus on other people, or not to focus on material things, but to focus on concepts, on messages, on wisdom, on chokhmah, on Torah, focus on divrei Torah, focus on divrei chachamim, on how to improve ourselves, and on tactics to make our lives better. That's what we should be focused on. So on this day of Tisha Be'Av, which is a day that's designated for the suffering of Am Yisrael, anytime that there's any tragedy that it befalls us on this time of year, so it's designated as a time of national mourning. We mourn all of the tragedies that have befallen us for many, many thousands of years. The precedent, the way it started was with the Meraglim, the spies coming and giving a negative report, speaking Lashon Hara against the land of Israel, the Am Yisrael listening and accepting that report of Lashon Hara, and because of that, Hashem said, you cried for no reason, I will forever make this time the time of crying of Tisha Be'Av. And the first Beit HaMikdash was destroyed on Tisha Be'Av, the second Beit HaMikdash was destroyed on Tisha Be'Av, and in fact the Chachamim explained to us that the second Beit HaMikdash was destroyed because of this baseless hatred, this lack of unity. And this lack of unity, one of the things that breeds it is this evil talk, Lashon Hara. Nowadays we're living in a world where it's not even about what you say, it's about what you text, it's about what you forward, it's about what you screenshot, it's about what you put on social media. Like, these things are very, very dangerous. It's very dangerous how you could really hurt people with taking a screenshot and sending something in chats. You could really destroy someone's life. And the person has no way to defend themselves. The person doesn't even know. It's something that we need to be extremely sensitive and careful of, never to hurt other people in malicious ways, not to speak about them in a negative way, not to hurt them financially, socially, emotionally, or in any way. We don't want to hurt others. We want to have unity. We want to care about each other, support each other, not to put others down, but to raise each other up. And Be'ezrat Hashem, we will make an effort of having that unity. And through that unity, Be'ezrat Hashem, this day of tragedy will turn into a day of celebration very soon.